Hello, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host of Fiberchats, and my guest today is Naama Ido from Hasarga Knit. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
So why brioche? Like I know I'm jumping into the midst of it, but
Yeah,
like
you're straight jumping. You
right.
wanted to introduce yourself as well.
But it's just like your account is all about brioche. Like why specifically
Well,
brioche?
actually, lately I have also mosaic and lace projects as well.
Right.
But I think that I like to challenge myself. So when I always try to challenge more and more and more, so I'm trying to go for the more complicated things. And that's why brioche, because I found it that it's like fascinating and you have so many possibilities that you can play with and do things with, and I'm just in love with it. And I also love the texture. It's like this two kind of layers texture.
Right.
Is just really, I love it.
So
So
what
that's
was
why
your
brioche.
like very first brioche experience?
Well, I think um actually I'm quite I started knitting when I was a little girl. My grandmother taught and my mother taught me. And then I left it. And then I think around 6 years ago, I got back into it. And yeah, I wanted to challenge myself more and more. And then I saw this brioche technique and I started to knit this um, cowl, brioche cowl. It was from YouTube. I didn't know how to read instructions yet. And I just did that. And I remember it took me, I think, a few weeks to complete this cowl. It had these braids and like more complicated things, and I was like really, but actually that's what turned me into being a continental knitter, because before I was English style knitter, but since I started to change to the continental knitting, it was just so much more easy.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
like it's funny because I find it the same thing. Like I find that brioche when you need continental is much more ergonomic than if you need English. Like there's
Yes,
much fewer
definitely.
movements.
It's much more fast.
Right.
And then what happened was also I'm a very passionate yoga practitioner. So I realized that like I'm training myself in yoga to change the different patterns and habits that I have in my body and in my mind and in my habits, I started to do it also with my fingers. So I started to challenge myself with learning new techniques and, like challenging myself so I can throw, I can knit continental, I can do them both at the same time.
Right.
So yeah, and it's much more economical when you do it like this.
Do you
So
find
yeah.
that like people when you calling for testers, right? Or when you're trying to sell your pattern, there is this general fear of brioche. Like a lot of people would avoid it if they can avoid it. And I noticed that a lot of even very experienced knitters stay away from it just because they hear the reputation of brioche. It's like it's similar to intarsia, like when people hear the word intarsia and it's automatic no to the pattern. Do you find that being a designer, like that's one of the challenges that you have to convince people that they can actually do it?
Well, first of all, I'm quite a new designer. And my first designs were like, first one was lace and the second one was already brioche. And I knew that this might be a challenge. So that's why my YouTube channel right now is dedicated into teaching, bringing it more easily to people. So I have 3 tutorials on my YouTube channel that really takes you through the basics of brioche knitting. And I think that they're quite helpful. So in my patterns, I also mentioned that in my brioche patterns, that if you don't know brioche, maybe go into these 3 videos. And also I made some brioche fixing videos. So if you have like all the problems that I had in the beginning that I didn't know what to do, I took the conclusions out of them and I just put them also in the videos. And I have many comments on these videos. They're helpful to many knitters. So that's also making me happy.
Right.
And for example, I have one beautiful girl or lady that I met through Instagram. She wasn't a very like dedicated brioche knitter, but I saw that she's doing beautiful work. Her name is Kenzie. And she was doing really, really beautiful work. So I wrote to her and I said that I would like her to test one of my brioche sweaters. And she said that she's not so good in brioche. And I told her, okay, so go to my video brioche index. It's with increases and decreases, and see if it suits you. And she was really like, she completed it in 1 week and she said, yes, I'm all in. And she made this most beautiful sweater. So it's possible.
No, I definitely know that it's possible. It just takes, and it's funny because I find like when I was first learning brioche, somehow I didn't see the videos explaining how to fix the mistakes. So every time I would make a mistake, first of all, I couldn't find the mistake. It wasn't like I wasn't reading the knitting basically, right? And then I had no idea how to fix the mistake. So every time I would make a mistake, I would just undo it and restart. So it took me like 18 tries until I finally like got it. And I figure out when I'm making mistakes and I figure out how to fix them, right? So videos like this are extremely helpful, obviously, to like.
I know, because the same thing happened to me. You have to be quite dedicated.
Right. So let's go back to you starting your designs. So you knitting as a little girl, then you're coming back to it 6 years ago. What made you decide to publish your first design? What made you decide that you are a designer now?
Well, it happened before, because what happened was that I was really into this knitting story and my yoga, and I realized that I don't have enough time to do everything. And I realized that when I go to work, I'm just kind of wasting my time there because I can knit. So I actually left my old life. I left my job, I left my apartment, I packed a suitcase and went to India, where I knew that I would just have the space to do whatever I want to do without really knowing what will come out of it. And I met there very inspiring people, and one of them was Sita, which I met in Castle Davy, which is an amazing knitter. And up to that time, she still is the most professional knitter I've met in real life. Right. And she really inspired me to really work in it and do something with it, you know, not just for fun. So I decided, actually, the whole thing was I decided to bring knitting more into the Israeli audience, because there are not many Hebrew, let's say, YouTube channels, knitting, and like, so I decided to do that. And while I was working on the YouTube channel, I started to design patterns so that I'm not stealing patterns. And then I realized that, hey, I love it and I'm good at it. So I said, what will happen if I'll also try to really be a designer, you know?
So how was your first patterns received by your audience?
Well, back then I didn't also really have the audience yet. So it all really built up from really, really small. I did get like really nice feedbacks from the test knitters. I always managed to fill the test knits. So I got really, really nice comments from the test knitters that I was working with. And since I didn't have this pressure of you know, making money of it straight away, because I had the space, India is a very cheap place to be in. So I wasn't very stressed, and I just knew that I'm good in what I do. And this is also something that I learned to do, to acknowledge what I have, my talents. And I just knew that in time, slowly, it will build up.
Have it ever been frustrating, like that you would publish a pattern and you wouldn't get the results that you expect from that pattern, like sales-wise or feedback-wise?
Well, actually, to tell you the truth, I don't expect so much. But it's the simple way of life that I live. I have my goals, of course I do. But for now, because my life is very simple, I don't need to sell so much in order to maintain the life as they are. So that's fine. And I just see that there is an increase, that I'm in contact with more and more knitters. And yeah, I know that for like the time that I've been designing, I think that I'm in a good place. Of course, some designs are really much more successful than the others, and that's also something that I'm learning.
When you design, do you have a potential customers in mind, or do you design what comes to you as an inspiration?
Usually I have motives, and I go like every time I'm kind of exploring something else. So for the past months, it was actually the mosaic knitting, this kind of texture here. And I'm just kind of, and also I'm knitting one right now, a big shawl. And sometimes I say, hey, maybe I'll make a shawl. People like shawls or whatever, but sometimes it's a real kind of, I have an idea, and it's like any artist, you know, I have to put it down, I have to work on it, I have to share it to the world. So it's every time a little bit different. If I really have a good idea, I sit on it and I just, until it's ready.
How do you think living in India inspired you as a designer? Because like all your designs basically happening mostly there, right? So like, is there an influence?
Yeah. As for now, all of them, yes. I'm now visiting Israel. Well, I would say that it was more a kind of feeling that I had the space to do whatever I wanted to do and to be creative in whichever way I wanted to. And there was no pressure. So that was the biggest impact that India gave me. And also I was collaborating with a couple of businesses there that made yarn. Like almost all the yarn that you've seen in my designs are from this small business in Almora, in this beautiful town in the Himalayas. It's called Peoli. And actually it's all hand spun. So they are also, you know, there are women who are working there coming from, you know, they're just doing the hand spun yarn. So you're actually giving also jobs to them by purchasing the yarn. So that was also a beautiful experience of feeling that you're supporting something that is beautiful, especially in this landscape. Also another collaboration from another part of India, of the Himalayas in Ladakh, from a business called We Are Kal. Yeah, and this will be published soon, this collaboration. And this is very inspiring as well, to work, actually to be kind of a nomad and to be in touch with the local yarn providers, with the local artisans, you can say. And I think that this is a motive that I want to continue and explore, to kind of travel through countries which have like a knitting tradition and that make yarn from the local animal, you know, and just do that.
Let's talk about your YouTube channel for a second. So you mentioned that when you started, you were concentrating on Israeli public, basically. You wanted to, because there was not too many Israeli YouTube
yes,
channels.
I wanted to do it in Hebrew, yeah.
Right, so you started with Hebrew, but then very soon you start doing 2 languages on the same video, and then it was like more English. Like, how did this transition happen?
Well, I'm not sure if it's a transition. I'm just doing what I feel it is right. But I realized that the Israeli audience, which I love, and they were my first followers, I felt that there's not so much audience out there in the Hebrew language. And actually, when I started with the brioche teaching, I realized that, you know, like suddenly my YouTube views really jumped. And I wasn't doing such like a crazy promotion over it. So that was kind of okay. And I realized that, and basically it's not about the success of my YouTube channel, because this I left behind. I want to be more successful as a designer. The YouTube channel is just for people to get the techniques, you know. So every time I feel that there's a need for something, or every time I feel that I have a really good idea, I just share it on my YouTube channel. So yeah, and still, like, I don't think I've made a Hebrew video for a very long time, because I feel that it's like I'm so busy with other things now. And for now, the videos that I'm doing are only if I'm knitting and suddenly I realize something, I'm like, oh, that would be interesting. And I just, you know, put the phone and, you know, film everything. Yeah.
What did you learn from like having a YouTube channel? What was the surprise learning experience in that?
Well, actually, I always, it might sound a little bit silly, but I always I didn't like cameras. And since I started with this thing, suddenly I'm so much more comfortable with cameras. So that was like the thing that I learned the most. Yeah, how to work with a camera, how to appear in front of a camera, how to make things look nice aesthetically. That was very new to me. I was never really I was neither behind the camera or in front of the camera in my life, you know. So that was a whole new experience, and also something more to master. Out of all the things that I had to master in such a short time as being a designer,
Right.
it's so many different things that I had to learn.
Do you prefer to use like models for your knitwear, or do you prefer to model it yourself?
Well, at the beginning, I did prefer to use models or just women, let's just say, because again, I wasn't comfortable in front of the cameras. But now I understand that it's a brand kind of, and I'm the brand, so I have to be in front. And also, it's an experience for me. It's like a healing experience of now opening myself to the world and showing myself a little bit more. So I'm taking this challenge as well. Challenges not only when you knit, also like other patterns that you need to solve inside of yourself. So that was something else that I learned.
And I noticed that you were very open about it on your Instagram account, because you talked about how like you were very self-conscious in front of the camera, but now you actually don't mind it as much.
I'm still conscious, but I'm learning to like it. It was also a very long experience, and it also happened in the mountains of the Himalaya, to accept my body, because I always had quite low self how do you say, self-image or whatever.
Right.
So actually I also shared it when I wrote about this pattern in Instagram, that I had some amazing experience regarding accepting my body and accepting all bodies. We are all beautiful. I really do feel it. And once you just see it everywhere, and you can see it also in yourself. And it sounds very kind of ultra spiritual, and people cannot, but I can relate to it. There were really strong experiences in India, like there was one place where there were hot springs, and it was like only for women, and all the local women also used to come, and the tourists as well, and we were all completely topless. And it was the first time that I was exposed to so many like naked bodies, and I was sitting there, and I was at the beginning really kind of wow, everything is really different. And then I looked, and I just couldn't see anything ugly, and there were all the body shapes and all different kind of women, different kind of ages, and everything was beautiful.
Right.
So it all came from there, and that was a very strong experience. And I think that it made me stronger and stronger and stronger, even if sometimes I don't think that I look very good. I'm still kind of, that's okay, it's
When you knit sweaters, so when you design sweaters, like that's probably when that's more noticeable, right? Because the grading for each body type and each size comes more in sweaters than in shawls. Do you have any like problems with that, of grading, like especially brioche sweaters? Because the extra small has that many repeats, and the 5XL has 7 times more repeats.
Are you asking like in the technical
Yeah, like is that ever problematic for you? Or like even when you design, right? Like what looks great on one body type looks ridiculous on another body type. Like how do you approach sweater designs basically?
Well, to tell you the truth, all my designs are kind of, it's like the shapes that are flattering to my body type. And you know, it's like everything that you decide to purchase, every pattern, every shirt, you have to see if it's gonna be fine by your body type. So I didn't really consider that it will like how it will really look on different body types, because my assumption is that, you know, it's flattering. Like this one, I always try to make it more narrow and like fit in this part, and then in these parts I try to make it a little bit more loose. This is what I like, and this is how my patterns are built. And actually the grading process, I always got really like, you can't believe how much work I put into this, because I wanted it to be so perfect. So I didn't do a general kind of thing for all the sizes. Actually, in my patterns, there will always be like 4 different files for the different sizes. So that was a lot of work, but I love it, and it's fine.
Well, when you design something, right? So there is like the whole process of designing. So you're coming up with the idea, then you sketching, then you doing all the swatching, finding proper yarn for it, seeing how like yarn's gonna work, then you like have to actually probably make the garment, then you have to write it down. What's your favorite part of that process, and what's your least favorite part of that process?
Well, definitely the knitting is my favorite part. And the knitting, and also like, because as you knit, sometimes you see that things are a little bit different, so then you have to adjust them. So it's like you're actually designing the shape and knitting at the same time, because sometimes, you know, some things might pop up, and then you might change some things, and then you have to also rip quite a lot. But I love this part, because that's, for me, this is the art, you know, this is where the art is coming to it. And yeah, well, writing it down, putting it into paper, that's always the most difficult part.
How did you learn how to do that?
I didn't. Well, I just, you know, I've been knitting many patterns. I've been buying many patterns in the past years. You know, I'm a very fast knitter, so I would maybe buy, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 patterns a month and knit them all. And with this experience of seeing many patterns of different designers, you know, I kind of had the idea of what a pattern should look like. And those were my references. And this is how I managed to put it into paper and yeah, do it.
Right. So let's talk about that mosaic shawl. You just came up with that design recently, right?
Yes, actually there's another one. There was the shrug that I made. And this is like, I decided to make it also into a shawl. So it's called Istanbul. And I don't know, those who follow me know that usually I'm not using so many colors, but one of my test knitters, she tested the shrug, and she really played with the colors, and that was so inspiring. And I said, I want to try as well, you know. So I took all the like different small skeins that I had, and I just joined them into this piece. And it's a combination of mosaic and lace, and Japanese lace.
Right.
So yeah.
What was the inspiration behind that shawl? How did you come up with that particular design?
Well, I started with the shrug. So this is the shrug.
Mm-hmm.
See, so it's like this, and then you have the holes for the sleeves right here. And it's been actually, I've been playing with this thing, starting from this center in a diamond shape. And yeah, and then I was looking into some books, and I saw this beautiful pattern here, mosaic pattern, and I said, I have to try it, you know. And then I just put it into the shawl. Yeah, and then I continued with the lace and just played between them. And you can see that these are just 2 colors. This is more my style of like not so many colors and so much difference. And then I just realized that it would be really nice if I just take this middle part, same as here. I start from this part here, and then I'm just with short rows, I'm actually building the triangle. After I have the diamond, with short rows, I just continue and build a triangle, and then I just knit around it to complete the triangle.
Right. No, it's very interesting, like structural way of doing it.
Yeah, I like challenges. Like for me to just do a triangular shawl is like really, I think that would be the most difficult thing for me to do probably, you know. I like it to be really kind of different,
right,
and interesting.
Do you feel like you are the same way with yoga? Like, do you push yourself beyond limits?
I'm the same way in life, you know. It's like that's just what I like to do. I like to explore. I like to, always like to explore and to get the most out of everything. So like this 3 years ago when I decided to leave everything, it was actually because I got too comfortable, and life were comfortable. I had a nice apartment, I had a nice job, but it wasn't enough. I needed more. I knew I could, you know, I could do something different with myself.
So can you like even imagine where you're gonna be, let's say another 3 years from now? Like, do you plan anything? Do you dream about things, or do you just take every day as it comes?
Well, to tell you the truth, I can't imagine where I'm going to be next week at the moment, because really right now I'm in Israel and the possibilities are really vast. So I have some, I don't know if I'll go to South America, or if I'll go back to India, or if I'll stay here for a little bit. So I really don't. But of course, I would like to develop this profession that I kind of created for myself. I would like to be able to fully support myself with that. And of course not to have any worries, but I also have trust that whatever is meant to happen will happen, and I'm open, you know. That's how it's possible to live the way I live.
Right. Is there like any knitting technique that scares you or intimidates you?
Well, if there is, I will dive straight into it. So if you hear about something that intimidates, let me know.
Love that. Do you do any other fiber arts?
Well, I did. I forgot to bring it here, but I did. I was always fascinated by weaving, but I never did it before. But I do have this kind of weave and knit technique that I developed, where you knit and then you drop down stitches all the way down, and then you actually you weave into the drop stitch columns that come out of it. So that's like kind of weaving inside the knitting.
Oh, that sounds very
and I started actually as crochet. I used to crochet like in my childhood.
Right. Do you ever think about like combining, besides the weaving and knitting, like as an example that you gave, like do you ever try to combine different fiber arts into one of your designs?
For now, no. Like I've seen some things with felting which are beautiful, and there are many things, but you know, if I'll just go for now, I'm focusing on what I do, but you know, it can always happen that something will really inspire me in my travels and I'll go into it. Actually, I'm also spinning. I forgot to say that Sita in the Himalayas, she taught me how to spin with this beautiful Turkish spindle.
Right.
So I was spinning quite a lot, and I have also a few things that are knitted all only by the things that I've hand spun from this spindle.
That sounds so special, actually, like to knit with your own hand spun yarn.
It's first, I also dyed it by myself. So that was the full experience of like really, you know, making something that is fully mine. So the first one was a West knit design that I did, and then I actually designed a hat with my own yarn that I dyed and spun, and that was like, wow, you know, that's the most I can do, you know. Starting also, I really believe that when you start from like the more initial kind of the raw material, and you actually go through all the stages, it's such an amazing experience. You know, I also feel like this also with cooking, that the more you go into really take care of the ingredients and gradually prepare them, then it's like a whole creation.
So when it comes to cooking, are you more of a like falafel girl or curry girl? Like, do you change your cooking styles like as you travel?
Well, I cook for myself always. Like when I travel, I never really travel like, you know, I'm never less than a couple of months in one place. So I always make sure that I have a nice kitchen where I can cook. And then of course the materials that are outside, I always learn them. You know, when I was in Thailand, I learned a little bit about the Thai kitchen, and in India I learned about the Indian kitchen, and I learned how to cook the Indian things. And in Israel, of course, the ingredients are different, so now I'm using them. And everywhere I go, it's the whole part of the traveling that I'm teach myself how to, you know, take inspiration from the kitchen, from the knitting, from the ladies. You know, like women are so inspiring, and I just, you know, I can watch the local women everywhere for hours and hours.
Do you
Yeah.
find like when you travel, do you find new things, like different things from what you used to, or do you find more similarities between people and things?
Well, both. I mean, sometimes I'm amazed how much the culture is different, but still the similarities are unbelievable. But sometimes the culture is so different, and it brings up like the differences so much. And actually, when you get to be in one place for a long time, then you really get to know, you really get into the culture. Like the past year and a half, I was in one village in the Himalayas, and I learned so much like about this Indian local people from that area. And like there were things after 5 years in total in India that only a couple of months ago I really understood about the culture. And that was really fascinating, and how also different it is what you see from the outside, and then what you see when you really have the chance to be kind of a part, you know, part of it.
So you mentioned the whole nomad lifestyle. What always comes with you? What do you always bring with you? What can you not leave behind?
What, like physical?
Yeah.
Well, I have one backpack for my personal things, and I have one trolley full of my knitting stuff.
So knitting stuff comes with you everywhere.
Of course, that's not a question. It's not, and my yoga mat, of course. So like the yoga, the knitting, and, you know, personal stuff.
When it comes to knitting, what happens to all the things that you knit?
Well, right now they're in a bag, just here. But I do, sometimes I give them as presents, and sometimes I sell them, and I will open an Etsy shop and offer them for sale online. But yeah, I would like to sell them.
Do you ever knit the same thing like numerous times? Like, do you have any, like a hat or a shawl or something that you've knitted more than once?
This one I knitted twice, because after I designed the one size, the small size, which I'm wearing now, I wanted, first of all, I realized that it can be nice also with a long sleeve version. And in order to do that, I realized also that it's not good to attach them at the end. So I had to start from the beginning.
Right.
And also I wanted to try it one size larger, in medium. So I knitted this one twice. So if when I'm knitting a design, I see that I would like, in order to write it down, to do it again, I would do it again. Otherwise, not really. this challenge thing is really kind of, you know, I learn something and I continue, I learn, I continue.
Right.
It's, yeah.
Do you usually work on one project at a time, or do you have multiple projects that you work on?
Usually it's one project at a time.
Do you, I mean, are you like a project knitter or a process knitter? Do you enjoy the process, or do you like need to have it done as soon as possible? So you project and
well, I think, you know, my life are all about the process. They're not about the outcome. I really feel that, especially when you're in the path of yoga, the thing is like not to be attached to whatever you will get to be or who you will be at the end. It's the path that is becoming actually the thing, you know, and being aware as you go in that path, and yeah, do everything consciously. I really am a great believer also like in ripping, like if something is wrong, I have no second thoughts. I'm just, you know, like my mother saw me the other day, I was like, oh, that's wrong. I took almost all the project off, and she was shocked. She said, what? How did you do that? And I reminded her that when I was a little girl, that's what my grandmother did to me when I came with, you know, a scarf that was almost done, and then there was a hole at the beginning, and I said, Grandma, can you fix this? And she said, sure I can. And she just ripped the she ripped the whole thing, and I was like, and that was the last time I was really kind of, you know, attached to a project in that sense. That was a great lesson, a harsh one, but a very good lesson.
Well, talking about yoga, so you need a lot of like heavy fabric shawls, heavy fabric sweaters. It's heavy on your hands, and you do a lot of knitting, you're very fast. So let's talk about hands. Yeah. Do you have any advice for our viewers as to how to not to get pain in your hands, of how to deal with it, how to stretch it?
Yes, I do. I have many. And first of all, I will just say that I'm not in perfect shape as well, because I really knit a lot. And I knit all these, and I realized that when I knit the really crazy technique style, I that's where I really get the pain. Like the other day, I was knitting something with herringbone stitch, and I really started to have the pain here. I think this is the most common pain that knitters have in the thumb. And actually for this, I think that what I learned from my friend who is doing Alexander technique is the most useful, that when you are knitting, consciously try to see if there is any excess tension. That means if you're actually tensing too much, because actually what the thumb is doing, it's just holding. It's not doing things like, sometimes the fingers are doing much more than the thumbs, but still the thumb is the one. And I realized that there is excess stress in this area. So consciously going to that place and letting go. Also, I realized, let's take a needle. So you have a needle, and I realized that, you know, you're knitting usually, I don't know, people knit in a different way. So you do this, and then you're really holding strong with the thumb. But if you actually hold like this, try to change a little bit like this, and then this is just giving the counter, and it's actually held here. So that can also create a lot of relief. And also there are warm-up exercises that you can do. And that's actually something that I really want to put on my YouTube channel, like a warm-up session for knitting. But I don't get to it, but it's a really, really big fantasy of me. So if you're watching this now and you would like to do it, please let me know. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel and to Irena's YouTube channel. Just subscribe and like and all these things that we YouTubers like. And yeah, I need sometimes for people to tell me, please help us out, and then I'm doing it. You know, it really gives me energy and I can do it. But I really want to do a kind of yoga for the hands, kind of all these exercises. Also, one more thing that I can say is that usually when you're knitting, your fingers are like this, like any other job that you're holding things. Okay, so actually to do exactly the opposite, like stretching also to the sides, also forward, and this kind of stretch also dog poses and handstands if you're really kind of experimental. Okay, this thing by itself is such a big relief. Okay,
Right.
and one more thing, because still I'm also a yoga teacher, so the tension can come all the way up to the shoulders, because when you're tense, your elbow can be tense, the shoulders will be tense, and you might feel also that your neck is tense. So you really have to make all like necessary things in order for this place to be relaxed, either consciously or warming up exercises for this whole area. And yeah, I will do the video. I will do it.
You should.
Once I get to a nice place with good view, I will do a video.
If you guys want to see that video, just write it in the comments, and I'll put the Naama's YouTube channel link also in the description of the video, so you can all go and subscribe there.
Thank you.
So what's your what are you working on right now?
Well, we said that I'm really into mosaic, didn't we? So now I'm actually doing a shawl that is all mosaic. So it's gonna be a semicircle shawl. And I don't know if you can really see the pattern, if it's coming out in this camera right now, but it's a kind of geometric pattern that's going all the way, and it's all mosaic.
Looks beautiful.
Thank you. And yeah, this is actually amazing yarn. This is hand spun, naturally dyed silk, and this silk which didn't actually kill anything. So right. That's also something, and it's from India, from those people I mentioned before, Pioli. I'll just show it from close. Yeah,
so beautiful.
Yeah.
So how long does it take you usually to like design a shawl of that size? Like, is that a quick project for you, or is it like months?
Well, specifically this one took more time than usual. First of all, because I already started and I got to the half, and then I realized that something was wrong, so I had to start another one from the beginning. And also because of this transition of leaving India and coming into to visit family, my brother's wedding and these things. So it was kind of stressful time for me. I didn't have a lot of time to really do my thing. But for example, there's this shawl, Madame Chic, which is a really big one, and that was very fast. I think it took me a couple of weeks to design it. Yeah. Right. That's where my hands started to get pain, because I was really knitting so much time, and yeah, while watching television, and yeah.
It's gorgeous. I really love your stuff. Like, that's why I asked you to be on my channel, because I feel like you have very unique, like distinguished look to your things. Like, it's sort of, you know how when you stroll through Instagram, you sometimes can see a picture and without even seeing who it belongs to, you can recognize the account just by the, like, you have that look. I feel like.
Thank you so much. It's such a big compliment. I'm working very hard on this.
Well, I can't wait to see what else you're gonna come up with, and I'm so glad that you agreed to be a guest of my channel. I love talking to you today.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.